There we go. So yes, let me start this again. Zach, you're gonna be Jack for now. Is that okay? No, Zach.
Whatever you want to call me, Greg. As long as it's clean, I'm okay with it.
Fair enough. This really cool guy here joined BNI in 2021 to oversee global operations and ensure the continued growth of the brand around the world. As a child of a small franchise owner, Zach is passionate about helping franchisees be successful. His broad-based business perspective, resulting from working in over 30 countries, 25 years of finance and operations leadership, and exposure to both small and large businesses, makes, and make sure I get this right, is it Kollias? Kollias, okay, thank you. Mr. Kollias, ideally suited to support the BNI networks. Prior to BNI, he served, and you're going to love some of these guys, served as a senior vice president of U.S. franchising at Wendy's. That's just, I go there all the time. Love the cheeseburgers. Okay. While there, his team supervised the operations development, training, and marketing of over 5,000 restaurants and 400 franchisees. His previous leadership experience includes roles with Church's Texas Chicken, Planet Hollywood, Applebee's, and Dairy Queen, as we were all talking about before the meeting started. Now, Zach received an MBA from Duke's Fuqua School of Business and his BA from Cornell University. Originally from Chicago, he now lives in Atlanta, but has also lived 4 years of his life overseas, and including in Greece, Mexico, and Poland. Speaks 5 languages, some better than others, and was it English, Greek, Spanish, French, and Polish. That is amazing. He's a board member of the AHEPA Chapter 1 Educational Foundation. That what they do is they issue scholarships to deserving youth annually in Atlanta, which is amazing. Love that. He actively participates in Tai Chi, fly fishing, and tennis. Been married to his wife, Margaret, for 27 years and has 2 sons. And we also met his dogs prior to the meeting started. So I'm going to leave this all with you, Zach. You can take over, and I can't wait to hear what you have for us.
Well, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. Let me know if it took over and give me a thumbs up.
You're there.
One of the key skills at BNI is to be able to share your screen effectively, I have learned. So well, thank you for the kind introduction. Again, done a lot of food, as you can see, but also a lot of franchising. So and I'm glad, I know food identifies well with this group. So glad I could share that with you all earlier. So, but thanks again for the kind words. I don't know if I like my spot on the agenda following John after all that good news and information. He's going to be hard shoes to fill, but well done, John. Great report. Obviously a lot of exciting things going on here in the group. So keep it up, right? Keep it going, and however we can help. So, so today, you know, when Moji and I were talking, she asked me to think about a topic she thought would be helpful, not just for each of you as it relates to BNI, but how it also might help you in each of your businesses. So the topic today is not really a BNI topic. It's really about execution at the end of the day, right? So, well, that is not the right presentation, I don't think either. I have too many presentations on my screen, apparently. I'm getting ready for the ANDT meeting that's coming up here very soon with the national directors around the world. So, yeah.
I believe Haley sent us a deck if you wanted us to look for that instead.
I have got it. So if I stop sharing that one, I should be able to share the other one. That's the right one. Yep, I've got it right here. Good thing I caught it at that point.
I'm sure the other stuff would have been good as well, Zach.
Oh yeah, the ANDT is very exciting. So I'm sure you all would have loved to hear about the ANDT that's coming up. But no, this is much more interesting, I think. So this is a course that I've taught before. I usually spend 3 hours teaching this course. And I have a much fuller version of this that has work sessions and breakout groups and icebreakers and videos and all that good stuff you do when you're teaching a concept. So I have shrunk it down to 20 slides, okay, which I figured would be good enough for today. and I want to make sure to leave enough questions at the end. So there's a couple moments where I may have some folks interject, and you can write some answers in the chat room when I ask some questions. And then at the end, we'll open it up for some open mic, Greg, and love to hear. If people don't want to ask about this presentation, I'm happy to take general questions on BNI as well, Moji, okay? Since I'm here and I pretty much know everything that's going on with the brand. So if you want to get it from the horse's mouth, I guess I'm the horse's mouth, literally today. So feel free to ask those questions. So let's get into this presentation. I'll try and get through it, try and time myself here. 103, get this done in about 15 minutes. Okay, so the topic, creating a culture of discipline performance using 4DX. So I'm going to go a little bit about why choose the book 4DX. I think I heard at least John's familiar with 4DX. If I remember Greg making a reference, I'm glad to have a fellow 4DXer on board here with me today. So, and then I'm going to go through the 4 disciplines themselves with the group and then allow questions. So why did I choose this book? Why do I love 4DX at the end of the day? It's really for these 4 reasons on the left of the screen. Is plans are useless without execution. No idea how many times I spend people making plans. You can have the best plan, but if you can't execute it, it's not worth the paper it's written on, okay? Doesn't mean you shouldn't have a plan, by the way. You should still have a plan, but you need to execute against it to have success. Oftentimes, the actions of our teams and our leaders don't match the words. You know, you think you're being clear, you think you're giving clear direction, you're not. Tamara and I were talking about simplicity earlier. Usually this happens when you're not simple in your plan. The more complicated your plan is, the less likely every individual is going to understand what it is. And so you'll think you're saying one thing and they're hearing another thing. So my company does not focus on the vital few. I like to say less and obsess is one of my favorite sayings in the world. Less and obsess. You got to do fewer, more important things, not many small things. And if you don't have discipline, what happens is you spend a lot of time working on many things instead of the vital few. And then the last thing is we measure too many things. It's the only pushback, John, I'd give you is, did we measure too much? Did someone leave your presentation knowing what winning really was? I'm not sure I did, because the last summary page gave me 8 or 9 metrics. Am I winning or not? I'm not sure. I'm not sure. So we'll talk a little bit about that part of 4DX at the end of the day here. So those are the 4 main reasons I think that you want to use 4DX. And if you've never read the book, this is the book here. But you should be able to find it pretty easily. Okay. So what does 4DX try and help you do at the end of the day is, as a leader, you have the whirlwind. The whirlwind, think about your day today that you've had so far, or maybe take last week. How much time did you spend on meaningless tasks? Versus how much time did you spend on the real strategic big things that you need to be working on? Most people flip these things and spend too much in the whirlwind and not enough time on their strategic goals. And as a result, they feel like this. Anybody feel like that way last week at work? Yeah, right? Yeah, I see Cyril raising his hand there. I can't see everybody at once on my screen here since I've got the presentation going, but this usually happens is because if you could get to the things that are strategic, they actually make the whirlwind go away. But because you never go work on them, the whirlwind stays and it just keeps growing, right? And so the good news is, though, as a leader, right, you have the ability to control what your team, what your business, and if you're the only person on your team, that's okay. You control what you work on. You control what's urgent. At the end of the day, your actions to your people, what you say is important is what they consider to be important, right? Tamara today talking about her new contract with the women's basketball team, right? That is a strategic move that could give her income for a long time. I guarantee you she spent time getting that deal done instead of getting 8 individual people's deals done, which would have made her feel like she was in the whirlwind, making $100 a person, and then they stopped coming the next week instead of a continuous steady stream of income for her business. Good decision, Tamara. Very nice. You said, don't work on the whirlwind and make what's urgent. And one of the key things in making things urgent is you have to say no. No is not an evil word, okay? No is one of the most powerful words in business. Say no to something. Say no to the person who comes once a week on Tuesday to Tamara for a month and a half versus the team that's going to be here for 6 months. And yes, that person's not going to be happy. And maybe you left $100 a week on the table, but what did you gain instead? Something much more important. So say no is okay. Saying no is okay. Right? It's a really hard one for BNI because of giver's gain. Giver's gain makes us always want to say yes. And I would argue that if you always say yes, you're actually not doing giver's gain because the people you're trying to help more are suffering because you add that extra person sometimes. Okay? You got to decide, no situation is the same, right? When to say yes and no, but you got to learn to say yes and no. So people always feel, lots of managers and business owners feel like they're victims. You're not a victim. You control your business. You control what's important. You control what you put your time on, and you control your outcome, right? You're not a victim of your situation. If I wanted to tomorrow, I could go to Graham and say, Graham, I'm done with BNI. I could start something else. And all these things that are in my head right now that are so important, that the whole world's so important, right? They'd all be gone. So are they really not in my control? They really are. Right? Don't tell Graham I'm quitting. I'm not quitting. Okay. but it's just maybe a bad example for this meeting. But anyway, so the book 40X, which you see on the left here, which does have some synopsis available if you don't have time to read the book. It does have some videos online that are free from the teachers that you can look at. I encourage you to go do that. It has 4 basic disciplines, and these are them. Focus on a goal. Have lead measures. I'll get into that a bit. Scorecard. It's very simple. We were talking, John, a second ago about your scorecard, right? And then create accountability in your people and yourself. Okay, so those are the disciplines. I'm going to try and go through the disciplines here. And again, I won't do them justice, Moji, as much as I should in the time I have, but I'll do the best I can. So discipline number 1, focus on the wildly important goal, a WIG. Okay, a WIG is different for those who have, anybody read Good to Great? Good to Great, anybody? Good to Great talks about a BHAG, right? A big, hairy, audacious goal, right? Big, hairy, audacious goals are different than WIGs. They're a much higher level, big strategic stretch goals, right? About vision. Wildly important goals can be very specific, very tactical, very short term, right? But a WIG is one of the key things you've got to set, okay? I won't read the definition, but again, it's about narrowing your focus and getting to something crucial. Interesting studies show, by the way, if you have 2 to 3 goals, you'll achieve 2 to 3 things. If you have 4 to 10 goals you're working on, you'll only achieve 1 to 2. If you have 11 to 20 goals, you won't achieve anything, because you're going to divide your effort. You're going to sacrifice one thing for another and do everything halfway instead of everything all the way. Okay? So this is not my chart. This isn't Zach's words. These are what come from the book and what's possible out there. But again, I'll go back, John, to your scorecard earlier, right? With 8 or 9 goals, the odds are you guys are going to only achieve 1 or 2 because you have too many. Where if you just pick 2 or 3 of the most important ones and focused all your energy on those, you'd achieve a lot more. And once you achieved them, you can move on to the next things. So we'll get into lead and lag measures here in a second. But that selection process is very important. So So I'm a Greek, so I had to put a warrior here who's winning a battle. So it's like a battle, right? And so rule number 1 is when you're picking your wigs, right, is pick no more than 2 to 3. Okay? No more than 2 or 3. Rule number 2, which is the more subtle leadership change, is you've got to pick wigs that'll win you the war. If you don't win battles, you won't win the war. A lot of times people come and try to work up here at the top level, right? I'll give you an example in our business is people like to talk about retention, right? I hate talking about retention. Retention is not actionable. First year retention is maybe actionable. Looking at the number of people that complete MSP is actionable. Looking at the number of people that complete a passport is actionable. Those are battle wigs, right? So if I say I'm going to have 90% of people complete MSP, that would be a battle wig that might win a war wig related to overall retention, right? So you got to pick the right battles if you're going to win the war. If you work on the wrong thing, it's not going to change your outcome. Okay? So rule number 3. Senior leaders, now if you're a sole proprietor and you're the only business, right, this rule doesn't apply because you are the coach and the team, right? But if you have a team, a leader can't pick the wig. The team has to pick the wig. You can veto something if it's just totally out of the box, right? It doesn't make sense. You can say, that's just not what we're doing. But what you can't is pick the wig. You have to lead the team to figure out what it is you should work on and coach them to get success. Because if they don't buy into what you're working on, you're not going to achieve it anyway. Can't be top down. The world of top down is ineffective from a leadership style at the end of the day. And then the last thing is a wig has to have a finish line, which fundamentally says I'm going to go from X to Y by a certain day. John, you did a great job with this earlier, right? We're going to move from 70% retention to 75% by December 2021. That's a great wig, right? In terms of how it's written. Where we are, where are we going? When are we going to be there by? Has to have a time, right? If it's open, it could be 2 years, 5 years. You got to put a timeline that makes sense. So that is, and what all that does when you make a wig is it takes your kind of broad thinking in your head and it turns it into a set of actions with measurement, basically. You can't have a broad feeling about what you're trying to do. It's in your head, right? All of you right now are thinking about your businesses going, okay, I know strategically what my business needs to do. I need to bring more customers, right? Or I need to be faster, or I need whatever it is you need to do. But until you shape that into very specific actions and targets, that vague thing in your head is going to stay vague. It's not going to change. So you got to have that first step, make a wig. What are you trying to do? The next key thing, which is really, I think, the second hardest discipline, I'll get into what I think is the first one, is lead measures. All right. What is a lead measure? It's finding those highly leveraged activities, as I was talking about before with retention, right? I was talking about MSP, for example, or Passport. Those are very specific activities that can create a result, right? It has to be something you can control. If you pick something to measure that you don't control, do you think you're going to change the outcome? The only way that outcome is going to change is if you go to church and pray that somebody else changes the outcome, because if you don't control it, you can't manage it. Okay. So basically what you're trying to do is you're trying to find lead measures on the side of the seesaw that if I influence these things, I can move the rock, right? So here's what I think is like an example for a BNI chapter. So let's say I want to have a 50-unit chapter size. First of all, I better launch a big core chapter, right? If I launch with 12 people, the chances of me getting to 50 are very slim, very slim. It can happen, but it's not usually. So launch it big, right? Then my visitor hosts are going to be important. So let me make sure I train my visitor hosts so that the visitors coming in have a good experience, right? I can control that. Then let me make sure I do 2-year renewals with people, because now I'm keeping these people on the bus, right? I'm keeping them in the chapter. I'm not having to replace them and keep turning them over. And the last thing, let me make sure 80% of my members are inviting somebody. Not 20%, right? That's what invites usually, 20%. But if I could get even 50% of my members to invite one person a year, how much more effective would I be? Then I've got a chance of getting to a 50-person chapter, okay? But you see how all these are very controllable, actionable, measurable ideas, right? So let's see if you've been listening. So I'm going to ask you some questions and you can write in the chat room. I don't know if I'm going to be able to see the chat room with how I'm working my screen here. Got too much.
I can help you if you need, Zach.
Okay, yeah, I got it there. Okay, so question number 1. Is profit a lead measure? Write in the chat room, yes or no. Is it a lead measure or is it a lag measure? It is a lag. Very good. Very good. Profit is a result. It comes from the things we do, right? You can't tracking profit week to week, is nothing wrong with knowing how much money you're making, right? But that, if you just work on making money, you're working on nothing. Okay. Let's go do another one. Is sales a lead measure or a lag measure? More chat room. Lag. We got one lead. It is a lag measure. Most people got that one. I'm going to make them trickier as I go here, right? So again, can I work in the restaurant space where I spent most of my career? I can't work on sales. I can work on customers count, increasing the number of people coming in through marketing. And I can work on the price of things I sell, trying to upsell you that big drink, right? No big fries, sell you a dessert. So I can make the check higher, but check times customer. Tamara is easy sell for Tamara. I can sell her anything. As long as I got an Oreo Blizzard on the menu, I'm going to sell her that every time. But it's a product of other things, sales. There's other things you move to drive sales. It is not a lead measure. It's a lag measure. Is customer satisfaction a lead measure or a lag measure? This one's a little trickier. It's primarily a lag measure because you can go lower. So in the restaurant business, I know when people fill out surveys whether the food was too hot, whether it was served fast enough, whether the server was smiling. I know things that made you satisfied. It's one of the things I don't like about our current NPS system, Moji, and I'm going to change it at some point. Trust me. Our NPS system doesn't let me analyze things. I can't. All I have is one number. What does that do for me? It doesn't do anything for me. I can't change any actions. I don't know what to tell you all to work on with the way we do NPS. So it can be a lead measure higher up in the organization, right? The further you get from the chapter, it can be more top level. So for me, where I sit, it gives me a general trend because it's got so much data in it. But for you, where you sit, you can't act on it. So one of the things that changes lead and lag measures is the individual, where you sit. The closer you are to the business, the more precise the thing has to be, okay? So that does change. All right, what about this one? The amount of time it takes to service a customer, is that a lead or a lag measure? Lead is right. Depends is a good answer too. So this is also tricky, right? So most of the time this would be measured in seconds or something, right? Minutes, depends on the product, right? But I can say the average customer gets their dry cleaning within 2 days of the day they sent it in, right? And I don't miss that time. So very measurable. I can deliver on a promise. The only time it would be a lag measure is if I'll go back to my food experience. Why is the time slow? Is it slow because the order was taken slow? Is it slow because the food was cooked slow? Is it slow because the the way the menu's designed is not easy to read? Is it slow because not enough people are ordering through their apps and they're ordering verbally? Is it slow because my speaker's not working and people don't understand me and they've got to repeat the order? There's multiple reasons I could track other things right below this if I wanted to. But generally speaking, something this specific is a lead measure. So important idea. It is the hardest thing to do at the end of the day. Okay. Number 3 goes back, and we were joking a little bit about the scorecard earlier. You know, a scorecard has to be really easy to read. And it has to be able to tell you if you're winning. It just has to be able to tell you you're winning all the time, because that keeps people engaged. All right. And so there's 4 rules to building a good scorecard. Keep it simple. Very, very simple, right? Your guys' scorecard just took 9-10 pages of presentation. I would argue you've got some more opportunity, Moji, on your and Deli on your scorecard to tighten that up a little bit for next year as you look at what wins and doesn't win. I could show you my scorecard for France. It has 5 numbers on it. That's it, on 1 page. I meet with Christophe, the national director of France, every Monday, and we look at 5 numbers. One of them is
an offer to share it with us, Zach? We'd love to see it.
Yeah, I can share you a look at that. I can.
Thank
Christophe
you.
is growing his business too, but I'd be happy to show you a 1-page scorecard, right? But you got to keep it simple. It has to be visible to the team, which means it has to be easy to get out. You guys are doing a nice job of that because you meet once a month, right? Maybe you send some of the numbers, Moji, Deli, every week. I don't know. You probably don't wait 1 month, I'm guessing, to share the numbers. You're probably sharing things. So you got to keep visibility. So I think you're doing a good job there. You got to choose the right measures. You got to choose the right measures. Which are the right measures for your business? And then you got to know if you're winning or losing. For me, winning or losing is growth in total global membership, period. If my membership total in the world is going from 284 to 285,000, I'm winning. If it goes from 285 to 286, I'm winning. So that's the main score on my scorecard. That's the one no one can doubt. Okay. So one of the greatest scorecards of all time is like a football field. I know what the score is very easily, right? I know if I'm winning or losing. I know what point I'm in the game. And I have a little bit of extra information about the status at this moment. Who's got the ball? What yard line? Like what point in the game am I at? Changes the play. But there's a reason this kind of format, and it's not just football, right? Basketball has the same kind of scorecard if you think about it. 2 teams' points, one's bigger than the other, right? Certain amount of time left in the game. Am I winning or losing? There's no question who's winning or losing, right? The Vikings are winning 14-7. Took me 2 seconds to figure that out, right? And they're not beating the Cowboys in this case. I figured out Greg's a Cowboy fan, so, but I'm a good deductive reasoner. But so think about your scorecard. Moji, when we hang up, I'll be happy to share with you, it'll have some internal information, so I'd appreciate not sharing it, but I'd be happy to give you a look and feel for what that looks like, you and Deli both. The last and the hardest part of 4DX is you have to have a cadence of accountability, right? You have to have a regular meeting, and once a month is not enough to achieve 4DX type results. In our business, I believe with the amount of frequency we meet, it's a once a week meeting. And so I have my team every Monday morning at 9:30 Eastern meets from around the world to look at the scorecard. Okay. And it's always at the same time. And we don't waste time on the whirlwind. So when someone starts talking to me about, I don't know, some little thing that has nothing to do with what we think is our wig, I just cut them off. I say, I don't want to talk about it. It's the hardest part. People are going to get lost in the detail. You ever been in a performance review and never talk about the person because you started talking about business? That's going into the whirlwind. Focus on the person. That's what you're there for. So you got to have that discipline to talk about those things that matter, right? So the way to keep that discipline is very easy. First, every person that's in the meeting gets to say 3 things, right? They get to say, how did they do on the things they said they would do last week? They get to review their scorecard, which shouldn't have more than 4 or 5 numbers on it, right? At tops. And they get to make commitments of what they're going to do the following week. So with my team right now, when you see the report I give you from Christoph at the bottom, you're going to see a list of this week's activities, last week's activities, 4 or 5 in each row. And the ones on the left, which are last week, he's got them colored green, red, or yellow. Green if he did what he said, red if he didn't do it, yellow if he started it and didn't finish. And on the right, he's got, here's what I'm going to work on this week. And the things on the right aren't brush my teeth on Monday, fill my car with gas. They are business things that he has to do that week to move the business forward, right? So we're buying a region in France. So he's got on the right side, negotiate with Jean-Claude the LOI for this region in France. That's strategic, it's specific. What am I going to do? And I'm going to do it by the end of the week. And next week he moves that to the left and says to me, I got it done. Or he didn't get it done. If he didn't get it done, we talk about why. Okay. So you have to have that. And this process per person shouldn't take more than 5 to 7 minutes in the meeting. In 5 minutes, I can tell you what I did last week, what I'm going to do this week, and how it's moving my scorecard. So if you put them all together, this is just a quick, I guess this is the money slide, right? If you wanted to take a shot of a slide, this gets you the 4 disciplines in one place and what you should be thinking about relative to each one. And I will guarantee you, if you start putting these disciplines in place, your business will change. Not just BNI, but your personal businesses will change once you create that kind of discipline and once you make yourself spend 80% of your time on what's important and not 80% on the whirlwind. Okay. And I think I did that pretty good. Not too bad. I'm a little long probably, Greg, but I think that's it for the presentation because I'm going to stop sharing and let people ask me questions. Like I said, I normally do that with a lot more interactivity with folks when I do a full class on this stuff, but I'm happy to answer questions related to 4DX. And I don't know, I guess I don't know if I'm a black belt, maybe I'm a bronze belt or whatever's right below a black belt on 4DX. And I've used it in multiple scenarios in different businesses, and I've always found it effective. And it does change slightly from one business to another, right? Depending on the frequency, of Jen, I think you were doing travel, if I remember right, food and dining experiences. And so it sounds like John might need some help in south of France, by the way. So if you can hook up with John, you could easily say, hey, we want to do this many trips, right, a month. And so let's go ahead and decide, how do we do that, right? Do we have to generate contacts to find those people? Or is it just we have the pipeline, but we got to close the deals, right? How do I make those things happen? And how do I spend my time on that instead of spending my time searching the web for something or whatever it is that falls in your whirlwind, Jen, right? So, but anyway, I'll open it up for questions then with whatever time I still have. Or if we're out of time, I'll get out of your all's way to let you finish.
No worries, Zach, and thank you so much. On that, I can adjust some of the breakout room times that we do, so that's all good. So I'm going to throw it to you guys. Right now, if we were to leave now, we've got just under 40 minutes. Our leaders on the breakout rooms, are you okay if we extend this another 5-10? Is that okay? Got some thumbs up. That's awesome. So please, if you've got any questions, let's go for it. Pose Zach some questions because we have him here. And don't be polite, Canadians. Just do it.
Yeah, no, I don't need polite. I got big shoulders. Trust me. You sit in my seat, you got to have big shoulders. So.
Well, I'll actually start, Zach, if that's okay.
Sure.
I thank you again. Love that. And the simplicity portion of it, I'm thrilled with going that route, just because it does allow us to focus better. Now in BNI, what would you say were the top 2 simplest, measures that we should be following and really working on, in your opinion?
Yeah, it's a great question, because I've been trying to get at the heart of that. I actually have a notebook here, right, that kind of tries to keep up with metrics and trying to figure out which are the key. I'm leaning pretty heavily on first year conversion rate. When we are at 47% globally, 46% on first year, not conversion, I say retention. First year retention's running below 50%. I mean, these are people that wrote us a check, right? Joined BNI, that in theory, our membership committees looked at quality of people, right? Just didn't go hunting for numbers. And we lose more than half of them after they make that initial investment. Many who don't even see the year out. Feels like low-hanging fruit to me. And so what is it and about that group that we can execute better? I do believe the visitor host piece is a big part of that equation. I was just in a visitor host focus group with about 20 visitor hosts the other day. 10 of them in the group, maybe 9, had less than 6 months BNI experience. We're making the brand new people who know the least about what to do be the visitor hosts. And the senior people are giving them those jobs because they don't want it. And because they're saying, oh, that's an easy job, you do that. Is that the right person to be a visitor host? Doesn't feel like it to me. Of course, they're not going to get good conversion. So that's a number I think is important. I think conversion ratio is a big number. How many visitors do we convert to members? Because I don't think we do a good job with, again, that's related to visitor hosts, the follow-up post-meeting with those folks.
Yeah.
I can tell you in the States, we found in the customer support center, 20,000 people who visited a chapter who were never contacted again by the chapter after they visited.
20,000. Oh.
20,000. We called them with our call center and converted 11% of them to members. So think about that. When you think, I wish we could do a better job tracking mentors of new members. You know how often we don't hardly fill in the field for new mentor in BNI Connect, who the mentor is. But what an important, everybody I talked to says the mentor, I just had a DC champions meeting and all the DCs were like, the mentor is one of the most important things for a new member. That person to turn to know how this works and what's going on and what those acronyms mean and what those officers do and how do I do my first presentation, all that stuff. How many times do we really never assign a mentor to a new member? A lot more than we think, right? Wow. So I think those areas are some of the most interesting to me that could really, because I have new eyes, right? Haven't been here only 5 months. We spend a lot of time on launch. And you know why? Launch is easy compared to holding people. Launch, I get an immediate pop on my total membership, 25, 30, 50 people, depending on the size of the group, right?
Yeah.
Versus, man, it's a lot of hard work for me to save everybody one person at a time. And my boss is going to beat me up about my number I got to get to. So I'm just going to launch a chapter. And I'll certainly launch more people than I'll lose in the next couple of months. So I'll be ahead. That's a leaky bucket issue that the whole brand has across the world. The true multiplier effect of BNI will come when we spend more time on retention. And I think next year you're going to see us talk a lot more about 2-year renewals, by the way. 2-year memberships are a big deal. Nice. 2-year memberships, I think, are a critical way to get people connected, especially new members, right? Because we all say it takes a little longer for people to get successful, right? You guys were showing $45,000, I think, of thank you for closed business in your group here. That doesn't happen usually in the first 6 months to a year. It happens later. Right.
I'm a case of that. Trust me. I totally relate. Now, just in the interest of time,
Robert's got a question. I think.
Yeah, he's got a question there. And guys, we're I think and if it's okay with you, Zach, if we have any further questions, since we do have to wrap up here, would it be okay if we kind of compile those and then we send them to you and we can, or maybe one-to-ones? What works best for you?
Yeah, if you want to compile some things, great.
Okay.
I also open myself up to one-on-ones. So
Okay.
putting my email address in the chat room right now. So happy
Great.
to take more questions there.
Thank you so much. So, Robert, you have a question?
Yeah, my question is, what is being done in respect to the retention as follow-ups to find out why people aren't renewing?
Well, some of the reasons why they're not renewing, some of it is that, again, first year experience I was talking about, Robert, at length, right? The interesting balance is there is a life cycle to a BNI membership to a degree, right? Where someone's business either gets too big or they've used up the network, if you will, for the lack of a better term, and they're ready to move on, or just get burned out. So some turnover is good. I think probably we should be 75 to 80%, probably somewhere around 80 to me feels like where we should be on retention if we're running on all cylinders. So the question is what causes that extra 10% in between? Right now is a unique time in the world because of the transition in COVID, right? And so you have the three formats, the hybrid, the 100% online, 100% in person, but regardless of that, no chapter right now has everybody agreeing to one of those formats, right? So somebody's going to be unhappy. And if you can't find another classification in a nearby chapter, right, or another region close by to add them to, then you're going to lose some people in the transition out of 100% digital. You're just going to, right? So it's a hard measure for me right now, Robert, to get my hands around 100% because of that. I do think, though, we also need to look more at the member path after year one. What do we do to make someone feel special once they're been on board for a while? When the first year we do member kits, we do mentors, we do all these other things, right? What do we really do for people? We do some recognition, right? But after you get past the first year, you're kind of just a member, right? And what we do for you is you get business. I think there's some touch points to be done in there that we need to do a better job of and get that experience higher. I also think we need to leverage the BNI Foundation more. More and more today, people want to stay part of an organization, want to see it do general good, not just its own good. And today we focus on our own good instead of our contribution back. And again, I know lots of chapters that do, Toys for Tots and do other things, right, in their neighborhoods, which is great. But that emotional connection is really important to stay around, Robert. I think at the end of the day, probably more important than the pragmatic one, right? The other thing I think that happens in longer established chapters is it can get a little cliquey, right? The people who've been there 2, 3, 5 years all know each other very well, and they don't really want new people in their clique. I've seen it over and over again. And so how do you get those folks to realize it's good business for them to expand their group, right? And that's cultural as well. So not a specific answer for you, Robert, but some of my thoughts, okay?
That's an awesome answer, Zach. I'll be honest, I just sent a private message to Moji and I said, Zach is passionate. And I totally appreciate that. And I would love to just keep things going, but we have our breakouts and stuff to go. So what I'm going to do is stop the recording first of all.